Captain Jake Morrison stared at the stars through the bridge window of the UHS Frontier as his ship moved slowly through the dark space near the outer rim of human territory. The year was 2387, and humans had been part of the Galactic Federation for 50 years now, but they were still treated like children by the 7 alien races that ruled the galaxy. The Federation called humans a Tier 3 species, which meant they were seen as primitive and too dangerous to be trusted with real power or advanced technology. Jake had been commanding research missions for 10 years, and he was tired of being told where humans could and could not go. Today they were doing another routine survey of empty space, looking for new planets that might be good for human colonies, but Jake knew the Federation would probably never let humans settle there anyway. The alien races always found reasons to say no to human expansion. Lieutenant Ben Hayes sat at the communication station when suddenly his face went white, and he turned to Jake with worry in his eyes. "Captain, we are picking up a transmission, but it is encrypted and using Federation military channels," he said quietly. "The signal is very strong, which means it came from close by, but there are no Federation ships supposed to be in this area." Jake walked over to the communication station and looked at the data on the screen. The transmission was definitely using high-level Federation encryption that humans were not supposed to be able to break. "Can you decode it?" Jake asked, knowing that human computer technology had advanced far beyond what the Federation thought they had. Ben worked on his console for several minutes while the rest of the bridge crew watched in silence. Finally, the young officer looked up with a grim expression. "Sir, I got it, but you are not going to like what it says. The message is from the Galactic Council, and they are talking about something called Protocol 7. Jake felt his stomach drop, because he had heard whispers about Protocol 7 in classified human intelligence reports. It was supposed to be a Federation plan for dealing with species that became too dangerous or grew too fast. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. The decoded message appeared on the bridge display, and Jake read it with growing horror. The Galactic Council had voted to implement Protocol 7 against humanity. All human colonies outside the Sol system were to be evacuated or destroyed within 90 days. Human ships would be confined to Earth and the other planets around the Sun. Any humans found outside the solar system after the deadline would be captured or killed. Dr. Alex Rodriguez, who served as the ship's science officer, stood up from his station with shock on his face. "Captain, this cannot be legal under Federation law. Humans have rights as Federation members," he said, but his voice showed he did not really believe his own words. Jake knew that Federation law meant nothing when all 7 ruling alien races agreed on something. The reptilian Korthax Empire and the crystal beings called the Vorthak Collective had never liked humans, and the other 5 races usually followed their lead. Humans were outnumbered and outgunned by thousands to 1. "There is more, sir," Ben said, as he continued reading the transmission. "The message contains coordinates for a meeting point where Federation fleets are gathering, but there are also some strange coordinates that do not match any known star system. They point to something in the Veil Nebula." Commander Kate Williams, who was Jake's second in command, moved to look at the navigation data. "The Veil Nebula is mostly unexplored because the gas clouds make it hard to scan. What could be out there that the Federation cares about?" she wondered. "Doctor." Rodriguez was studying the coordinates on his own screen when he suddenly made an excited sound. "Captain, these coordinates point to something very old. My sensors are detecting metal signatures that do not match any known Federation technology. Whatever is out there has been floating in that nebula for a very long time." Jake made a quick decision that would change everything. Ben sent an emergency message to Admiral Lisa Chen at Human Space Command. "Tell her about Protocol 7 and that Federation fleets are moving toward our colonies." Kate set course for those coordinates in the Veil Nebula. "We need to find out what the Federation is hiding out there." As the Frontier changed direction toward the mysterious coordinates, Jake looked out at the stars again, but now they seemed cold and hostile. Somewhere out there, Alien warships were moving toward human worlds, filled with families and children who had no idea their lives were about to change forever. The Federation had decided that humans were too dangerous to live free among the stars. But Jake was determined to prove them wrong. The ship entered hyperspace and raced toward the Veil Nebula, while behind them, the First. Federation attack fleets began their assault on the human colonies of New Texas and Eden Prime. Jake did not know it yet, but he was about to discover something that would give humanity the power to fight back against impossible odds and change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The UHS Frontier dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Veil Nebula, and immediately every sensor on the ship began screaming warnings. The space around them was filled with strange energy readings and floating debris that looked like it had been drifting here for thousands of years. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, staring at the massive shape that slowly became visible through the swirling gas clouds ahead of them. "My God," whispered Dr. Alex Rodriguez as he looked at his science station readings. "Captain, that ship is enormous. It is at least 20 kilometers long, and the metal it is made from does not match anything in our databases. The energy signature suggests it has been here for over 1,000,000 years. Commander Kate Williams checked the navigation systems and confirmed they were at the exact coordinates from the intercepted Federation message. Sir, the ship appears to be dead. No power readings, no life signs, and no response to our communications attempts. But the hull is still intact, which means whoever built it had technology far beyond anything we know." Jake ordered the ship to move closer, while Chief Engineer Dan Parker ran deep scans on the mysterious vessel. "Captain, the design is completely alien, but not like any of the 7 Federation races. This looks older, much older than anything in Federation space. The ship has weapon ports that could hold cannons bigger than our entire vessel." As they approached the derelict ship, Jake could see that its hull was covered in strange symbols and markings that seemed to shift and change when he looked at them directly. Dr. Rodriguez was recording everything and comparing the symbols to every known alien language in the human databases, but finding no matches. "Captain, I am detecting a very weak power source deep inside the ship," reported Lieutenant Ben Hayes from the communications station. "It is almost like something is sleeping in there waiting to wake up. Should we attempt to board the vessel?" Jake knew this decision could mean the difference between saving humanity or dooming his crew, but they had come too far to turn back now. "Dan, prepare a boarding party. Take Rodriguez with you to study those symbols and Hayes to handle any communication systems you might find. Kate, you have the bridge and be ready to get us out of here fast if something goes wrong." The boarding party took a shuttle over to the ancient ship and found an airlock that looked like it had been designed for beings much taller than humans. Dan managed to get the airlock working, and they entered a corridor that stretched away into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on as they walked deeper into the ship, as if it was responding to their presence. Dr. Rodriguez used his portable scanner to examine the symbols on the walls and discovered they were not just decorations, but some kind of data storage system. "These markings contain information," he told the others over the communication link. "Give me a few minutes to see if I can translate them." While Rodriguez worked on the symbols, Dan found what looked like a control room filled with strange technology that hummed with barely contained power. The machines were unlike anything humans had ever built, but somehow Dan felt like he understood how they worked just by looking at them. "Captain," Rodriguez called out excitedly over the radio, "I have translated some of the symbols and you need to hear this. This ship belonged to a race called the Architects, and they once ruled the entire galaxy. According to these records, they were destroyed by something called the Devourers over 1,000,000 years ago." Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he listened to Rodriguez continue reading from the ancient records. The Architects knew they were going to lose, so they created hidden weapon caches throughout the galaxy. The weapons would only activate for a species that was intelligent enough to find them and desperate enough to use them. "Captain, I think this ship is a map to those weapon caches." Dan had managed to restore partial power to the ship's main computer. And suddenly, the control room filled with holographic displays showing star charts and weapon locations. A mechanical voice began speaking in broken English that sounded like it was learning the language as it talked. "Greetings, young race," the voice said slowly. "I am the final record of the architects. You have found us in your hour of greatest need, just as we hoped. The weapons we left behind can give you the power to defend yourselves, but they come with a terrible price. Each weapon will change whoever uses it in ways that cannot be undone." The holographic display showed 12 different star systems scattered across the galaxy, and each one contained an architect weapon cache. The computer explained that the weapons used technology that could change matter at the smallest level and give incredible abilities to whoever bonded with them. "But be warned," the artificial voice continued. "These weapons will make you powerful beyond imagination, but they will also make you something more and less than what you are now. The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because the enemy that destroyed us has not forgotten this galaxy." Jake felt the weight of decision pressing down on him as he realized what the computer was telling them. The architects had left weapons that could help humanity fight the Federation, but using them would fundamentally change what it meant to be human. At that moment, Ben's voice crackled over the radio with terrible news from Human Space Command. Captain Admiral Chen reports that New Texas has fallen. 2 million colonists are dead or captured, and Federation fleets are moving toward our other colonies. We have maybe 72 hours before they reach Eden Prime. Jake looked at the star, map showing the location of the nearest weapon cache in the abandoned Kepler 442 system. He thought about the families on Eden Prime and all the other human colonies that would be destroyed if they did nothing. "Dan, download everything from this computer. We are going to Kepler 442 to get the first weapon," as the frontier raced toward the weapon cache. Jake wondered if he was about to save humanity or destroy it, but there was no time for doubt now. The Federation had forced this choice on them, and Jake was determined to make them regret it. The UHS Frontier arrived at the Kepler 442 system to find nothing but dead worlds orbiting a dying red star, but Dr. Alex Rodriguez's sensors detected something buried deep within the core of the third planet. Captain Jake Morrison ordered the ship to land on the barren surface while Chief Engineer Dan Parker prepared the mining equipment they would need to reach the architect weapon cache. "The cache is buried 3 kilometers down," Rodriguez reported as he studied the scan results. "The planet's core has been hollowed out and converted into some kind of storage facility. Whatever is down there has been waiting for us for over 1,000,000 years." Jake led the landing party down through natural caves that seemed to spiral deeper and deeper into the planet's heart. The walls were covered with the same strange architect symbols they had seen on the derelict ship, and they began to glow with soft blue light as the humans approached. It was like the planet itself was welcoming them. After hours of climbing down through the caves, they finally reached a massive chamber carved from solid rock. In the center of the chamber sat a device that looked like a mix between a weapon and a piece of jewelry. It was made from some kind of metal that seemed to shift and flow like liquid, but held its shape perfectly. "The readings are incredible," Rodriguez said as he approached the device with his scanner. "This thing is generating energy patterns I have never seen before. It is almost like it is alive and waiting for someone to pick it up." Commander Kate Williams, who had stayed on the ship, suddenly contacted them over the radio with urgent news. "Captain, I am picking up Federation ships approaching Armstrong Station. 3 Korthax dreadnoughts are preparing to bombard the colony. They have 2 million civilians down there with no way to escape." Jake looked at the architect weapon and knew they had no choice. Someone had to bond with the device if they wanted to save Armstrong Station, but the alien computer had warned them about the terrible price. Whoever used the weapon would be changed forever. "I will do it," Rodriguez said, stepping forward before anyone could stop him. "I have studied the architect technology more than anyone else. If someone has to be changed, then it should be me." Before Jake could protest, Rodriguez reached out and touched the flowing metal device. The moment his fingers made contact, the weapon seemed to come alive and began wrapping itself around his arm like living metal. Rodriguez screamed in pain as the device bonded with his nervous system and began rewriting his DNA at the cellular level. The transformation lasted for 10 minutes, while Rodriguez writhed on the ground as his body changed in ways that should have been impossible. When it was over, he stood up slowly, and Jake could see that his eyes now glowed with the same blue light as the architect symbols on the walls. "I can feel it," Rodriguez said in a voice that sounded like his own, but somehow different. "The weapon is part of me now, and I can do things that should not be possible. I can see the quantum structure of matter and change it with my thoughts. I can phase through solid objects and manipulate energy in ways that defy physics." To demonstrate his new abilities, Rodriguez walked straight through the solid rock wall of the chamber and then stepped back through it like it was made of air. He held out his hand and created a ball of pure energy that lit up the entire cave. "System! But there is something else," Rodriguez continued with worry in his voice. "I can feel the memories of the architects in my mind. I can see their final battle against the Devourers, and it was terrible beyond imagination. The enemy that destroyed them is still out there somewhere in the dark between galaxies." Jake pushed those concerns aside for now, because they had more immediate problems. "Can you help the people at Armstrong Station?" he asked Rodriguez, who nodded and said he could teleport directly to the battle if they got close enough. The Frontier raced toward Armstrong Station at maximum speed, while Rodriguez practiced using his new abilities. He could now phase through the ship's hull and float in space without any protection. He could also move objects with his mind and generate energy shields that could stop almost any weapon. When they arrived at Armstrong Station, they found the 3 Korthax dreadnoughts in orbit around the colony world, raining down destruction on the helpless civilians below. The alien ships were massive and heavily armed with enough firepower to crack a planet, but Rodriguez just smiled and stepped through the Frontier's hull into open space. Jake watched in amazement as Rodriguez teleported directly onto the first Korthax ship and phased through its armor like it was not there. Within minutes, the massive dreadnought went dark as Rodriguez destroyed its power core from the inside. He moved to the second ship and did the same thing, while the aliens frantically tried to figure out what was happening. The third dreadnought tried to escape, but Rodriguez teleported ahead of it and used his new abilities to twist the ship's hull, like it was made of clay. The entire engagement lasted less than 20 minutes and ended with 3 of the Federation's most powerful warships floating dead in space. The rescue was broadcast across human space, and suddenly every human colony knew that they had a weapon that could fight back against the Federation. But Jake was worried about what he saw in Rodriguez's eyes. The man was still human, but there was something alien there too, something that grew stronger each time he used his abilities. Navigation Officer Sam Collins studied the data from the Armstrong Station battle and made a disturbing discovery. "Captain, each time Rodriguez uses his abilities, the changes in his DNA become more pronounced. At this rate, he will be completely transformed within a few months." Jake realized they would need more people to bond with architect weapons if they wanted to save all the human colonies, but each person who volunteered would pay the same terrible price as Rodriguez. They would gain incredible power but lose their humanity in the process. As reports came in of more Federation attacks on human worlds, Jake knew they had no choice. The Federation had declared war on humanity, and the only way to survive was to become something more than human. He just hoped they would still remember why they were fighting when the transformation was complete. 6 months had passed since Dr. Alex Rodriguez first bonded with the architect weapon, and now 12 humans had undergone the transformation that gave them incredible abilities but cost them their humanity. The enhanced humans called themselves Guardians, and they could communicate with each other through telepathic links that worked across vast distances of space. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Frontier, watching as the Guardians prepared for another mission against Federation forces. Rodriguez could now manipulate matter at the quantum level and reshape reality around him. Chief Engineer Dan Parker had bonded with a device that let him interface with any technology through thought alone. Security Chief Ryan Brooks could move, faster than the human eye could follow. "The Guardians are ready, Captain," reported Commander Kate Williams as she monitored their preparations. "They are going to hit the Federation supply depot at Rigel Station while the main fleet attacks their shipyards at Vega Prime. If we can cut off their supply lines, we might be able to slow down their advance." Jake nodded, but he felt uneasy about how different the Guardians had become. They rarely spoke to normal humans anymore, and when they did, their voices sounded cold and distant. They referred to people like Jake as the Unchanged, and seemed to think regular humans were too slow and limited to understand their plans. Dr. Susan Blake, who served as the fleet's chief medical officer, had been studying the Guardians and her. Reports were disturbing. "Captain, their DNA is changing faster than we thought possible. They are incorporating genetic material from unknown sources and developing abilities that should not exist. I am not sure they are still human in any meaningful sense." The Guardian mission began when Rodriguez and his team teleported directly onto Rigel Station and began systematically destroying the Federation defenses. The alien soldiers could not fight enemies who could walk through walls and manipulate the station's own weapons against them. Within an hour, the entire base was captured, and its supplies were being loaded onto human ships. But something went wrong during the mission when Rodriguez discovered classified Federation files that revealed the truth about Protocol 7. The plan to eliminate humanity was not just about controlling a dangerous species. The Federation had detected something approaching from the dark space between galaxies, and they were preparing for an invasion by consolidating power under fewer, more controllable races. "Captain, you need to see this," Rodriguez said when he returned to the frontier with data stolen from the Federation computers. "The aliens are not our real enemy. They detected movement in deep space 3 years ago. Something is coming back to reclaim the galaxy, and the Federation is trying to prepare for it." Jake studied the stolen data and felt his blood turn cold as he read about massive bioships moving through the void between galaxies. The ships were each the size of moons, and they consumed everything in their path, converting matter into more ships and soldiers. The Federation called them the Devourers, and according to the files, they had ruled the galaxy over 1,000,000 years ago before the Architects defeated them. "The Federation thinks the Devourers are returning to reclaim their empire," Rodriguez continued, as his glowing eyes stared at something only he could see. Protocol 7 was meant to reduce the number of species the Federation would have to control when the invasion begins. They wanted to eliminate humans because we are too unpredictable and grow too fast. Navigation Officer Sam Collins checked the deep space sensors and confirmed Rodriguez's information. "Captain, I am detecting massive energy signatures at the galaxy's edge. Whatever is out there is big, and it is moving toward us slowly but steadily. At current speed, they will reach Federation space in less than 2 years. Jake realized that the war between humans and the Federation had weakened both sides at exactly the wrong time. If the Devourers were really returning, then all the galaxies, races would need to work together to have any chance of survival. "Rodriguez, can you contact the Federation leadership and propose an alliance?" Jake asked, but the Guardian shook his head with what might have been sadness. "I tried, Captain, but they refuse to believe that humans discovered the truth about the Devourers. The Korthax Emperor thinks this is some kind of trick to make them lower their guard. They are convinced that humans are the real threat to galactic stability." The situation became desperate when Federation forces launched a massive assault on the human colony world of Haven. The attack was led by Admiral Korthak himself, commanding a fleet of 200 warships with orders to completely destroy the planet as an example to other human worlds. The Guardians raced to defend Haven, but they arrived too late to stop the orbital bombardment that killed 3 million civilians in the first wave. Rodriguez and his team managed to destroy half the Federation fleet, but the planet's surface was already burning, and most of its cities were gone. Jake watched the destruction of Haven on the main screen and felt rage building inside him as he saw the bodies of human children floating in the wreckage of their homes. The Federation had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and now there could be no peace between the species. Rodriguez, how many more architect weapon caches are there? Jake asked as he made a decision that would change everything. 6 more, Captain, Rodriguez replied. But each one requires a volunteer, and the transformation becomes more extreme with each bonding. The next volunteers will lose even more of their humanity than we did. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew and saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. The Federation wanted to treat humans like animals. Then they would show the aliens what humans were truly capable of when they were pushed too far. Send out a call for volunteers, Jake ordered. Tell them what happened at Haven and what the transformation will cost them. We are going to retrieve every architect weapon and use them to end this war once and for all. As the frontier raced toward the next weapon cache, Jake knew they were crossing a point of no return. The Guardians were becoming something beyond human, but they were humanity's only hope for survival against both the Federation and the returning Devourers. The war had been raging for 18 months when the first Devourer bioships finally reached the outer rim of the galaxy and began consuming everything in their path. Captain Jake Morrison watched the sensor readings from the bridge of the UHS Frontier as 3 moon-sized vessels devoured the Altair system completely, leaving nothing but empty space where 4 planets and a star had once existed. Admiral Lisa Chen had managed to convince some of the smaller Federation races to join an alliance against the Devourers, but the Korthax Empire and Vorthak Collective still refused to cooperate with humans. They insisted that humanity was the real threat and continued attacking human colonies even as the Devourers consumed their own worlds. Dr. Alex Rodriguez, who had become the leader of the 18 Guardians, now barely looked human at all. His skin had taken on a metallic sheen, and his eyes glowed with blue fire that seemed to burn from within. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that normal humans could not produce, and he communicated with the other Guardians through telepathic links that spanned the entire galaxy. The Devourers are not just consuming matter, Rodriguez explained to the Alliance leadership during a strategy meeting. They are harvesting the consciousness of every living being they encounter and adding those minds to their collective intelligence. Each bioship contains millions of enslaved souls from species they have conquered over the eons. Commander Kate Williams studied the tactical reports and shook her head in despair. Our conventional weapons barely scratch their bioships, and they adapt to any attack we use more than once. Even the Guardians can only destroy 1 ship at a time, and there are hundreds of them approaching the core worlds. Jake had authorized the creation of more Guardians by retrieving the remaining architect weapon caches, but each new volunteer underwent more extreme transformations than the previous ones. Navigation Officer Sam Collins had volunteered for the final transformation that gave him access to Architect Fleet Command protocols, but the process had erased his human personality completely. Collins is no longer the man we knew, reported Dr. Susan Blake after examining the transformed Guardian. His brain now operates on quantum principles that allow him to coordinate space battles across multiple star systems simultaneously, but his human memories and emotions are gone. He is something entirely new. The first major battle against the Devourers took place at the Rigel system, where a combined human-alien fleet of 400 ships faced 3 bioships that had been consuming worlds in that region. Jake commanded the human forces, while Admiral Chen coordinated with the alien allies who had finally realized the true threat they were facing. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history, as conventional ships fought alongside Guardians who could manipulate reality itself. Rodriguez and his team phased through the bioship hulls and began destroying critical systems from within, while Collins coordinated fleet movements through pure thought. The bioships are adapting faster than we expected, Collins reported in, a voice that no longer sounded human. They are learning from each attack and developing new defenses in real time. We can hurt them, but each victory costs us more than the last. Jake watched in horror as half the Allied fleet was destroyed in the first hour of battle, but the Guardians managed to crack open one of the bioships, revealing the terrible truth inside. The ship contained over 50 million enslaved minds from dozens of different species, all connected to the Devourer collective consciousness. "My God," whispered Dr. Blake as she studied the sensor readings. "Those are not just prisoners, they are the core intelligence of the ship itself. The Devourers are using the minds of their victims to power their technology and coordinate their attacks." Rodriguez made contact with some of the enslaved consciousness and discovered that among them were surviving architects who had maintained their individual awareness for over 1,000,000 years. "They have been waiting for someone to find them," he explained. "The architects built one final weapon that can destroy all Devourer technology at once, but activating it will fundamentally change every living being in the galaxy. The weapon was hidden in the galactic core and could only be activated by beings who had undergone the complete architect transformation. It would send a pulse of energy through hyperspace that would destroy all Devourer biotechnology, but would also grant every sentient being in the galaxy a portion of architect knowledge and abilities. The enhancement would be permanent and irreversible," Rodriguez warned. "Every species in the galaxy would gain some level of architect abilities, but humans who initiated the pulse would receive the greatest enhancement. We would become the dominant species by default." Jake realized they were facing an impossible choice between allowing the Devourers to consume the galaxy or fundamentally changing the nature of all life within it. The Federation races were still fighting among themselves, even as their worlds burned and time was running out. The decision was made for them when the Korthax Emperor launched a surprise attack on Earth itself, using a weapon designed to destabilize the Sun. The assault was meant to eliminate humanity once and for all, but the Guardians intercepted the attack fleet before it could reach the solar system. "The Emperor refuses to see reason even now," Rodriguez reported after destroying the Korthax battle fleet. "He believes that eliminating humans will somehow make the Devourers go away. We cannot wait for the Federation to accept reality." Jake gave the order that would change galactic history forever. "Rodriguez, take the Guardians to the galactic core and activate the architect weapon. End this war before there is nothing left to save." As the Guardians departed for their final mission, Jake looked out at the stars and wondered what the galaxy would look like when they succeeded. Humanity had started this conflict as a Tier 3 species struggling for survival, but they were about to become something far beyond what anyone had imagined. The transformation pulse would enhance every living being in the galaxy, but it would also establish human dominance over all other species. Jake hoped that when it was over, humans would remember the values that had driven them to make this sacrifice and use their new power wisely. The final battle began simultaneously across 12 star systems as the Devourer bioships launched their ultimate assault on the galaxy's core worlds. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the defense of Earth while Admiral Lisa Chen coordinated the desperate resistance from her flagship as hundreds of alien and human ships fought against impossible odds. Dr. Alex Rodriguez and the 18 Guardians had reached the galactic core where they found the Architect's final weapon buried within a massive space station that had been hidden for over 1,000,000 years. The weapon was unlike anything they had encountered before, being more like a living organism than a machine, and it required all the Guardians to bond with it simultaneously. "The transformation will be complete this time," Rodriguez warned his fellow Guardians as they prepared for the final bonding. "We will become true architects and lose the last traces of our human identity. Are you all prepared for this sacrifice?" Each Guardian gave their consent, knowing that activating the weapon would save the galaxy, but cost them their humanity forever. One by one, they placed their hands on the strange organic device and felt their consciousness merge with the ancient architect knowledge that had been waiting for this moment. The transformation was more intense than anything they had experienced before, as their bodies and minds were completely rewritten by technology that operated beyond the laws of physics. When it was over, the 18 beings that had once been human guardians now possessed the full power and knowledge of the architects themselves. Back on Earth, Jake watched the sensor displays as devourer bioships approached the solar system intent on consuming humanity's home world. The human defense fleet was outnumbered 50-1, but they fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Core," reported Lieutenant Ben Hayes from his communications station. "It is Rodriguez, but his voice sounds completely different now." The voice that came through the speakers was still recognizable as Rodriguez, but it carried harmonics and overtones that hurt to listen to. "Jake, we have successfully bonded with the weapon, and we are ready to activate the galactic pulse. When we do this, every living being in the galaxy will be enhanced with architect abilities, but the process cannot be reversed." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew and saw the same determination in their eyes that had carried them through 2 years of impossible war. "Do it, Alex. End this nightmare and give us a chance to build something better." The pulse erupted from the galactic core and spread outward through hyperspace faster than light itself. When it reached the devourer bioships, their organic technology simply dissolved as the enslaved minds within were finally freed after 1,000,000 years of torment. Across the galaxy, every devourer vessel and creature was destroyed instantly as the architect technology turned their own biological systems against them. But the pulse did not stop with the devourers as it continued spreading to every inhabited world in the galaxy. On Earth, Jake felt the energy wash over him, and suddenly he could perceive quantum structures and manipulate matter with his thoughts. Every human on the planet experienced the same enhancement as they gained abilities that would have seemed like magic just hours before. The alien races throughout the galaxy underwent similar transformations, but the enhancement was not equal among all species. Humans who had initiated the pulse received the greatest increase in abilities, while the Federation races that had opposed humanity found themselves with lesser enhancements that left them clearly inferior to their former enemies. In the aftermath of the transformation, the Korthax Emperor and Vorthak Queen found that their military advantage had completely disappeared. Human civilians now possessed abilities that surpassed their most elite soldiers, and the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Jake received a communication from Admiral Chen, who reported that Federation fleets across the galaxy were surrendering rather than face humans who could now destroy starships with their bare hands. The war was over, and humanity had won not through superior firepower, but by making the ultimate sacrifice to save all life in the galaxy. The new architect beings that had once been Rodriguez and his fellow guardians established themselves as the Eternal Watch, dedicated to protecting the galaxy from threats that might emerge from beyond the galactic rim. They no longer considered themselves human, but they remembered enough of their origins to guide humanity in using their new responsibilities wisely. 5 years after the transformation, Jake found himself serving as the first human galactic administrator, overseeing a new government that included all the galaxy's species as equal partners, rather than the old Federation system of domination. The former ruling races had voluntarily submitted to human leadership, recognizing that the enhancement had made humanity the natural choice to guide galactic civilization. Earth had become the new galactic capital, and representatives from thousands of species came to learn human values of cooperation and individual freedom. The old system of rigid hierarchies and species-based oppression was replaced by a government that valued each being's unique contributions, regardless of their origins. Jake often walked through the halls of the new Galactic Senate building and marveled at how much had changed since that day when the Frontier first intercepted the Federation's Protocol 7 transmission. Children from dozens of different species played together in the gardens, while their parents worked side by side, building a better future for everyone. The day humanity activated the architect weapon had become known as Ascension Day, and was celebrated throughout the galaxy as the moment when all species were finally freed from the cycle of conquest and oppression that had defined galactic politics for millennia. Deep space monitoring stations kept watch for signs of other ancient threats that might emerge from the dark void between galaxies. But for now, the galaxy was at peace under human guidance. The stars that had once seemed cold and hostile now welcomed all species as part of a growing family, united in their determination to build something greater than any one race could achieve alone.